Thanks, John. I'll just check my top pocket.
So the Mayor of London and Conservative parliamentary candidate Boris Johnson with me now. PPC for good afternoon for Uxbridge, which is in sort of West London, I suppose. What do you make of that then?
Well, I mean, I guess they will say that it's all a joke and a bit of fun and that kind of thing, but there's very, very clearly there the kind of conceit of Alex Salmond that he knows his party, if there's going to be a Labour government, it can only be with the support of the SNP. They can only get stuff through if the SNP is willing to back them up. And there he is, effectively giving the game away in I think, a very kind of arrogant way, actually, saying that he, Alex Salmond, with all his love of left-wing economics and all the rest of it, is going to be masterminding the budget of this country. Well, you know, the many a true word is spoken in jest. And actually, I thought, looking at it, I think there was a real element of complacency. I think they genuinely think that in a few weeks' time, a couple of weeks' time, there's no other way that Ed Miliband could be governing this country except by being propped up through confidence and supply, as we call it, by the 40, 50 Scots Nats. And the implications of that for this country are, I think, extremely unsettling. You're going to have to say nothing of their ambitions for the union, you know, it's there on the title. They're the Scottish Nationalist Party. They don't wish the...
And they'll tell you that they've had a referendum, it was a no, and as a result there won't be a vote about
Okay, well, if they want to be the Scottish Unionist party, then they can change their name. I thought that their ambition and charter, mission, aim was to break up the union. But if they've changed, then, you know, I'm willing to be educated on that.
Talking about a bit of a joke,
but the real problem is not the danger they pose to the union. The real problem is that for Ed Miliband to have any hope of passing any legislation, he'll be held to ransom by these guys who want to increase borrowing by 148 billion, who want to get rid of Trident, who want new, quote-unquote, progressive taxes imposed on this country. And you're already seeing infrastructure projects cancelled. Or, you know, Labour saying that they're going to cancel infrastructure projects in the southwest. There's a threat to the things we want to do in London.
Scaremongering because you can't win the election on your own.
No, I think I think actually it's only the Conservatives who have a positive programme for this country. And I actually fought. This is the sixth election I've fought. I've never felt so convinced, Kay, of the rightness of the cause. When I look back 5 years ago to the mess this country was in, and I look at what has been achieved, I think this country is now really starting to go through a period of sustained growth and recovery, and that is enabling us to pay for some fantastic things. The childcare offer, the 30 hours childcare that the Prime Minister was banging on about this morning, I think it's dead right. Helping people with what happened in London, for instance, when people die and they're very often, because of death duties now, have to sell their home. The Tories are trying to address that problem. Huge numbers of jobs have been created and will be created under the government's programme. And it's that economic dynamism that is enabling us to pay for the great things in public services.
I mean, what a lacklustre campaign that we've seen so far. Even the Prime Minister, even before he started, said, "I'm not even." I
think it's been a dynamic. It's been a one. But that's all you want in the media.
Let me finish my question, and then you can answer it. And the question was, even before the campaign started, he said, "Even if I win, I am not going to serve a third term for 5 years in total."
Couple of things there. First of all, I think the campaign is about, you know, a very serious subject, which is which way do you want the country to go? Do you want to go with a sensible long-term plan for economic growth, progress? Do you want to keep Britain moving forward? Do you want to? I think the potential of this country at the moment is absolutely incredible. I look at London, I look at what's going on in this economy, and the potential is extraordinary. Your question, the second part of your question, was about what the Prime Minister said about 2020. 2020 is a long time away, and you know, by that time,
2 weeks away.
Well, thank you. 5 years and 2 weeks, which, you know, is still quite a long time in politics. I think most political analysts would say, and that's a long time.
Point is, he's throwing in the towel even before he gets the keys to number 10, if indeed he does.
I think he will, and I think it's a long time in which to help to entrench what I think is a pretty sustained and pretty remarkable economic recovery. That's what we need to do. That's what we need. That's what we need. We need him now to do.
Why is it not reflecting in the polls?
Well, okay. I think that it is quite interesting what's happening in the polls, because I'm not as gloomy as you are, or I don't take as negative a view as you do about the polls. I think that actually, on average, last week there was a sort of Labour was ahead by about 1 point. On average, this week we seem to be ahead by the same amount, and in other words, we're nosing in the right direction. We're now consistently ahead, whereas I think before we weren't. And my other view I've long held is that this is an election where millions of people are only now starting to focus on the choice. They're only now starting to think, hang on, what's all this about? I've got people on my doorstep. I've got people, stopping me in the street with bits of shiny coloured paper, asking me for my vote. They're only now starting to focus on the election. And I think it is a very, very clear binary choice that they will face in the next 2 weeks. And in the last, we've seen this before in 92. In the last few days, I think they will really, really focus on that choice. Do you want to go forward with the Conservatives, who've got a sensible programme, a pragmatic programme to keep this economy on track, and they've taken some very tough decisions over the last 5 years, but it has paid off. You've got massive increase in employment. You've got the second fastest growing economy in the G7. Or do you want to give? Yeah, I'll chuck in them too. Help all those hard-working families, as you rightly say. Or do you want to go back to the guys who drove the car off the cliff last time? The Thelma and Louise of British politics, though considerably less attractive or dynamic than either Thelma or Louise. The answer is, I think people will look at it. They will stare into that abyss of that Labour government, aided and abetted by the Scottish nationalists, or rather not aided and abetted, but manipulated by a group of hardened political operatives. You would say that, wouldn't you? The point is that you are neck and neck with Labour. There is 50 votes, or 50 seats potentially in their back pocket or in their front pocket, depending on which photograph you're looking at. And as a result, you're terrified of the SNP. So you put out this sort of scaremongering on Mr. Cameron's Twitter feed today. No, I think it's extremely illuminating about the mentality, the state of complacency in the SNP. But what many of our viewers won't have really realised is, because people don't follow politics with the obsessiveness of you and me, that Labour has collapsed in Scotland. That's a brute fact of the election already. It's an irreversible position for many of those Labour MPs. They are miles and miles and miles behind. And Labour knows that they're going to lose, that there are going to be 40 or 50 Scottish nationalist MPs. And therefore, the only way...
They're never going to support the Conservatives. Ever, ever. N-O spells no, says Mr. Sturgeon.
Well, and one of the consequences of that will be a Labour, Scots Nats, condominium, coalition, alliance, deal, whatever you want to call it, in which you have the Scots Nats tail wagging the Labour dog and holding this country to ransom.
That's an interesting breed. We're running out of time. What does your Wikipedia feed look like? And
my Wikipedia feed...
Have you ever thought about potentially changing that page if it's been too negative?
I did look at it ages ago. It's a great tissue of misconceptions and misrepresentations. Outrageous. I wouldn't know how to begin to change it, nor have I thought to. And,
would you criticise others who perhaps did?
If you're referring to Grant, he's made it absolutely clear that isn't true, and it seems to me to be infinitesimally trivial by comparison with the things we've been talking about earlier on. I think who knows what proceeds from the dark recesses of the internet, what devilry may go on there, and frankly, I think what matters now is do we go forward with a Conservative programme for long-term economic progress and recovery, do we take this country backwards unlabelled. I'm mayor of the city that is now the most successful urban economy in Europe, if not the world. We've got huge challenges. We need to build more homes. We need to help our people get from the place they live to their place of work in a speedy and efficient way. We need to help them to afford to live in London.
How we got there from me talking to you about Wikipedia.
Well, I think the whole Wikipedia thing is so gloriously trivial by comparison with the things that matter to me.
What's written in them? If it's completely trivial, why bother changing what's put there?
Well,
I don't change mine, and you don't change yours. Well, so why would potentially others, like Grant Shapps, change his?
I hope that one day, there will be in my Wikipedia entry that we built a record number of affordable homes in London, and we reduced crime by 20%, and that we had the biggest investment in transport infrastructure this country has seen since the Victorian time. I think it's highly unlikely that anybody's going to do that for me, but you never know. They might do, and that is the achievement of the Conservatives.
Okay,
and I hope. Look, I really hope that people will.
Can I get a word in edgeways here, Mr. Johnson?
Of course.
Thank you.
No, sorry.
Just for clarification, if and when we see a Conservative government and then Mr. Cameron decides not to run in 2020, would you like to be Prime Minister?
Well, by 2020,
yes or no would be fine.
Well, the answer is by 2020 I will be, I hope I'll still be alive and still in Parliament, but the kaleidoscope of politics will have changed, rotated. There will be all sorts of new possibilities.
Would you like to be the leader of the Conservative Party?
I would like David Cameron to lead us to
and when
victory.
He isn't any longer, who would you like? Would you run for office?
Don't rule out the possibility of, I think, a very considerable Conservative success on May the 7th.
Yes, you would like to potentially be considered as the leader of the Conservative Party when Mr. Cameron is no longer there?
Well, it's not
something. Or no?
So it's not something that is top of my agenda now, because top of my agenda now is to get David Cameron elected.
Yeah, but when he's no longer there, would you like to be leader?
As we discussed, I think only 10
minutes ago.
No. 10 minutes ago,
when not saying no.
That is at least 5 years away, which is a lot. Which is an eon in British politics. By which time, whatever my personal ambitions may be, there will be thrusting young men and women who will be overtaking me, and who knows, So it'll all be different. But the priority is to have a successful election on May the 7th, and I'm genuinely, walking around talking to people. It doesn't feel like 2001, doesn't feel like 2005. It's better than 2010. It reminds me a bit of the
You want to be Conservative leader,
election.
and you don't. You've got so much flair and pizzazz about you, and yet you can't. When you're actually nailed down, you won't say, "Yes, I would like it when Cameron's not there anymore."
Well, I'm here to explain that. First of all, Alex Salmond.
People are groaning in my ear. In the gallery.
Well, that's
saying answer the question is what they're saying.
I have answered your question.
You haven't. Yes or no? Do you want to be Conservative leader after Cameron's not there anymore?
Well, in the dim, distant future, obviously, it would be a wonderful thing to be thought to be in a position to be considered for such an honour. But I think it's highly unlikely, as I've said many, many times before, that it's more likely that I will be reincarnated as an olive, or blinded by a champagne cork, or locked in a disused fridge.
We've run out of time. We've run out of time. We're going to have to leave it there. Thank you for joining us here on Sky.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.